Hey guys, Constance here from Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So I'm just in here baking some bread today. And I just thought I would bring you in here to chat a little bit while I got my bread dough going. Just a couple of updates that I wanted to share with you. First of all, a while back I have a Cochin chicken out there who is just, she is so pretty. She's a blue Cochin. Well, that's her breed. But she's white with speckles all over her, almost like a splash color chicken. And I mentioned a while back that she was so unique and so pretty that she needed a name. Well, a bunch of people gave suggestions in the comments of that video, and there were some really great suggestions. There was actually one in particular that I had actually thought of before, but it's not one I want to give to a chicken. I want to give that one to something with a little more significance on the farm, maybe a goat that we add or something like that. I love that name, but I did find one that was perfect. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, that's the name. So we decided to name her Opal, and she is one of Dapper Dan's companions. Dapper Dan is our big blue Cochin rooster. And yes, so it's Dapper Dan and Opal. We don't name all of our chickens. We do give a chicken a name if they really stand out and they're unique. And Opal definitely qualifies. So the rain is letting up a little bit out there. It's still kind of sprinkling, but it's not raining as heavy as it was earlier. We've got Zeta coming through today. Well, today and tomorrow, I think, was the forecast, if I remember correctly. What's left is the water. So when I do my water for the bread, you always want water that's been filtered to get the chlorine and all of that out. So what I do is I fill up my tea kettle over there, and I get the water nice and hot, and then I add enough cold filtered water to cool it down to the appropriate temperature, and that is hot. So I'm gonna need to balance this out. I give it a stir so that the two temperatures get mixed together. Alright, so we get this going. So last week I did a video. In it I was using that wonderful new attachment for my KitchenAid that dices your foods up for you. It's amazing. I love it. However, I was dicing up peppers to freeze. And I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking is the problem. I took all of those diced peppers and I just put them straight into my freezer containers and froze them. Normally, when I am freezing something like that, I will put it in single layers on a, like say a baking sheet, put a single layer, spread them out, put a piece of parchment paper over it, put another layer, and I'll just layer them, as many as I can get, on a baking sheet, and I freeze them until they're solid. Then I put them in my freezer containers. I don't know what I was thinking. I just went and put these peppers straight into my freezer containers. Not smart. Not smart at all. I think I'm probably going to have some issues. Well, I mean, hopefully I won't. Hopefully I'll be able to get the peppers out as needed, because if you freeze them first, they're not generally going to stick together much, or you can just like shake the container and tap it and they'll come loose from each other. That way you can get out just the amount of peppers that you need for a recipe. And I just had one of those moments. So just for future reference, if you are freezing something like diced peppers that are juicy, have a lot of moisture in them, you want to freeze them, then put them in the container and then stick them back in the freezer. It just makes life easier down the road. So that is just evidence that I am, yes, indeed human, and I do make mistakes in the kitchen. Which reminds me, a while back, and I never got around to sharing this, I did film it, but I never shared it. I had a great big canning fiasco. For the first time in all of my years canning, I thought I had a jar explode in the canner. Thankfully it did not explode, but I had a great big old mess. Hey guys, so I just got done canning a really big batch of soup, and I have a feeling when I open my canner right here, I'm going to be very upset, because I think, now I've been canning food for years, and I think we've just had a first. I think I had a jar explode in my canner. Because as it was cooling down, now it didn't happen while it was canning, like while it was processing. After I turned off the heat to let it start coming down, it was like halfway down and I heard a metallic thunk sound, and soup came out the pipe vent. Alright, so I'm getting ready to take my jars out, and I'm going to cover my counter with some towels. And I always do 2 towels or a double thick layer, and pretty sure I'm gonna have a great big mess here. So my top layer is going to be dark towels that won't stain so badly. Alright. Oh. Okay, well, good news, bad news. So bad news is we have a huge mess. Good news is it wasn't actually a jar that broke. It was one of my reusable lids popped off. Oh, where did I set my tongs? Oh. So I had a bunch of empty space and I didn't want to just have 2 jars up here on top, so I filled a couple jars with some water just to fill up space. I'm going to move these out of the way. Ugh.
Did it do it? Oh, geez.
A lid popped off. So that's a better situation, but it's still a mess.
Yeah, that's gonna be a nightmare to clean.
I'm just gonna take this one over here to the sink.
That one won't be too bad to clean.
No, I don't think it'll be too
Just
bad.
soak it.
Yeah.
What a phooey. Hi, Ava.
Let me show you the mess here. Yep, it happens. Now, the rest of the jars that are in here, there's not going to be anything wrong with them. They'll be fine. So I'm just going to pull this out, get the rest of the jars out. I'll set them over here and let them cool. And then tomorrow I'll clean the jars up and they'll be fine. Just a little bit more cleaning will be needed. So here's what happened. Using the reusable lids, you can kind of see where it's pushed out on top. These reusable lids, I've mentioned before, they have a little bit of a learning curve. And when you put them on not quite as snug as you would a regular lid. So you put the lid on not as, look at this. When you put the reusable lids on, you don't put them on quite as snugly as you do your regular lids, because what happens is if the lid is too tight, the reusable lid will push up and dome up and not be able to release the pressure that's inside the jar. Worst case scenario, the jar could explode. That's not what happened here. Second worst case scenario, the lid will pop off from the pressure, and that's exactly what happened. So we had a volcano that took place in here with hamburger stew. So I often have questions about this when I'm doing my baking. What is it that I am coating my pans with? And this is a baking spray replacement. Rather than using baking spray that has the flour in it and everything, you know, the aerosol can, I just have this mixture that I do. It's equal parts oil, flour, and organic shortening. Mix them till they're smooth, keep it in a jar, brush it on pretty much any kind of pan that you would grease in flour, spray with baking spray, anything like that, and everything comes right out. I use this in bundt cake pans, I've used it in stoneware, metal pans, you name it, I use it on those, and it works great every time. I almost never have anything stick. So I'm just kind of setting those out of the way for a minute so I can get out my bread dough. Probably just went a little bit overboard on the flour right there. So the baby chicks in there are doing great. You can probably hear them occasionally from the other room. They get loud at times. These Icelandic chicks are very vocal. Matter of fact, they actually woke Mr. Smith up one night. He thought something was wrong because they even started going crazy at night in the dark. He went to check on them. Everything was fine. They were just being vocal. Pretty funny. I'm surprised I didn't hear it, to be honest with you. I'm a very light sleeper. I wake up at every little sound. But amazingly, they didn't wake me up that night. And they woke up Mr. Smith. And he is one of those people who sleeps through everything. So, those are ready. I'm going to set them over here. I've got my oven light on so that it creates a nice warm environment for my dough to rise. So I can set these in there to rise. So I have to confess, I went to Hobby Lobby yesterday to get a couple of things, and I bought some fabric. Like, I don't have enough aprons apparently, but I bought this fabric because they had some new prints for that duck cloth that I like to make my aprons out of. And you guys, they had so many new ones. I had to force myself to not buy them all. They had this beautiful one that had like herb leaves and writing on it. Very, I don't know, it was just so pretty. And then they had one with beehives on it, very vintage looking. They had like a farmer's market sort of one, and all of these beautiful fabrics. So I'm going to show you the two fabrics that I did get. First, there's this one, which, I mean, come on, look at this. Tomatoes, garlic, carrots, peppers. It's all things garden, and I love it. Oh, so cute. But this is the one that made me drive to Hobby Lobby. And we don't have a Hobby Lobby in our town, so I had to drive up to the next town to go to it. Now, I had someone ask me where they can get duck cloth or where I get my duck cloth, and if people could get it online anywhere if they don't have any stores anywhere near them. And Hobby Lobby is generally where I get all of my fabric and things like that, because I don't have a Michael's or a Joann's or anything else. Hobby Lobby is the only place that is reasonably close for me to go to. However, their website, and I'm sure other stores are similar, their website does let you order fabric by the yard. So you do have to order full yards, like 1 yard, 2 yards. You can't order partial yards, but you can order their fabric online. And I went online to get the link and share it with someone who had asked about it. And when I did, I saw this fabric. Look at this. It is sheep and pigs and cows and chickens, and it is just perfect. There's even, I don't know if that's an alpaca or a llama, but how cute. But how cute is that? I had to have it. So, like I said, I'm sure I'll end up making aprons out of these, but yes, I saw those and I had to get them. Not that I need any more aprons, It's kind of getting ridiculous how many aprons I have, but who can resist? So yesterday, or the day before, I shared a video where I was working on all sorts of projects out there in the goat yard, installing gates and doing electric fences and building walls for the shelter and all of that. And a question that I was asked, and it's one that I get asked on a pretty regular basis, is how did I learn to do all of the things that I do here that all of you see me doing, whether it's using power tools or building things or baking things and all of that. And quite honestly, I'm very much self-taught. And you'll have to pardon if you hear crunching. The dogs just decided to start eating in the other room. I've always been a pretty independent person, and I've always felt that if there's something that I wanted to learn how to do, then I can just learn how to do it. I read books. If I get a new tool, I read the manual. Nowadays I can go online, I can watch YouTube videos on how to do things. I don't think there should be any limitation as far as ability goes if there's something that I want to do. Now, of course, there's always going to be limitations. You know, if there's something I want to do and it's not a one-man job like running the actual heavy-duty fencing, that took a few more people to do than just myself. Then of course I would need help, or I might have financial limitations. I mean, there's all sorts of things I would love to be able to do here on the homestead. I just don't have the finances to do it all. So I just prioritize the things that I feel need to be prioritized and kind of go from there and do things as I have the ability financially and the time to do. But I've just always been a pull yourself up by the bootstraps and get it done kind of person. When I was little, my mom worked at a bank almost my entire childhood. And she worked every other Saturday. So every other Saturday, Dad was in charge of keeping me and my sister. And I remember times when my dad was working on things. He was always handy. He was always working on projects, building things, remodeling things. And I remember him taking me down into the room in the basement where he had all of his tools, and it's kind of a little bit of a workshop. And there were times he would have me hold a board while he cut it, or things like that. But when I was very little, he would keep me occupied by giving me a piece of scrap board, like a piece of 2x4 or something, a handful of nails, and a hammer. And I would just sit there and I would pound nails into scraps of wood, and I'd pull them out and I'd pound them back in as often as I could until those nails were just all bent out of shape and couldn't do it anymore. So I suppose the idea of using tools as a woman is just second nature to me, because I kind of grew up with a hammer in my hand. Now, I didn't necessarily do all the things that I do now, of course. I didn't have the ability or the need to do those things. But when it came time to do them and start working on the projects like this, I just didn't give it a second thought. Alright, I did a little bit of an experiment this time. Normally when I put all of my loaf pans in the oven, I set them on the rack individually. And I decided to set them on a baking sheet so that I could put them all in and take them all out at once. And I was wondering if it would have an effect on the bottom of the loaf, but so far it looks pretty good. And I must say that these loaves turned out beautifully. See right there? So I think it was successful. And that definitely made it much easier to put them in and take it out. So I think I will be doing it that way in the future. And that mindset of if something needs to be done, I figure out how to do it is really who I am. I mean, it's second nature to me, and it doesn't matter what it is. If it is learning how to bake bread, or milling wheat, or building a goat barn. If there's something that I want to do, I will find a way to gain the knowledge to be able to do it. Doesn't mean it always turns out right the first time. Sometimes there are learning opportunities, but it doesn't mean I shouldn't try. For instance, I have yet to master sourdough, but I am going to try again, and I will keep trying until I figure it out. But just because something doesn't work is not a reason to not try. So I've never been one to limit myself, and if there is something that I want to do, then I don't see any reason why I shouldn't figure out how to do it. That is it for today. Thanks for joining me here in the homestead kitchen while I baked some homemade bread and all of that. My name is Constance from Cosmopolitan Cornbread, and I'll talk to y'all next time.